What is up? So this is a really impromptu, quick stream. I'm expecting it to be just a few minutes, actually. As your brain is, mine is also just beginning to stir about these Timberwolves. And I just love how all of these Mavs fans are becoming overnight Timberwolves fans. Well, to Timberwolves experts. And man, I am just not. I saw them play a couple national games that the Mavs weren't involved in. And I saw all the games where the Mavs were involved, right? All our matchups with the Mavs and Pups. So I am not an expert. I was, of course, impressed with their defense, their versatility, their size. But I don't know this team. And so just be mindful as you're watching Mavs Twitter kind of get excited for the Western Conference Finals, which is awesome and wonderful to do, that these content creators are not experts on the Minnesota Timberwolves. I am not. I will speak for myself. I am a lifelong basketball fan. I've been watching the NBA pretty exclusively for a long, long time. I'm pretty knowledgeable when it comes to ball, right? When it comes to basketball. But I don't know these Wolves. And so I started thinking like, okay, so I don't even really want to dig into all of their regular season stats, though I did kind of do an overview of that just in my own time, and that's impressive. They've been really, really good all season. Remarkably healthy and just really, really consistent and really, really good, especially on the defensive end. And one thing I saw is that, their offense was not that great in the regular season. I think they were very league average, like somewhere between 14 and 16, if memory serves. But that they've actually been better offensively in the playoffs. not awesome. Not great for us there. But what's one aspect of this upcoming Western Conference Finals matchup that you are really interested in observing and watching? And you're going to have that magnifying glass to kind of just be watching. Is it rebounds? Is it free throws? Is it three-pointers? Is it overall scoring or defense? Or is it passing assists? Is it keeping the turnovers down? What are the things that you're looking for? Is it individual matchups, right? Is it Cat versus Kyrie? Is it Luka versus McDaniels? Is it our bigs versus Rudy and Cat? What are the matchups that you are really looking for? Or what are the statistical data points that you are really interested in looking out for? All right, so here's how some of these stats are working so far. So we see that field goal percentage, the Mavs are actually, as far as field goal percentage, the Wolves are at 47.2%. That's really solid. Like, that's just behind the Celtics there for all of the playoffs. And so that they've been shooting it really, really well. And then the Mavs are considerably behind, but are third, right? Which is, they've been shooting it decently well, 46 to 47. So I'm calling that a push, right? So they've been shooting well, but so have we. Their three-point shooting is right under 36%. And Mavs are 36.6. So I'm going to basically call that a push as well. So both teams have been shooting decently, or basically league average from three in the playoffs. You see that the Pacers and the Celtics have been shooting considerably better from three than the Mavs or the Pups, but that's not really what we're looking at here. Notice the free throw percentage disparity. They are shooting just under 80%. I mean, 79.6. You can just call 80% from free throw, and that's exceptional. As a team, shooting 80% from free throw is awesome. Now you look at the good guys there. Look at the Mavs, 69.8%. The Mavs are shooting 70% from the stripe, whereas the Wolves are shooting 80%. Like, that's a 10% difference, right? And that's huge. The Mavs historically throughout the season were not a good free throw shooting team. They lost a game in the playoffs against the Thunder, specifically because they decided that they were going to be atrocious from the free throw line. So that's a bummer, right? But also notice the points. So it's not just a defensive juggernaut, right? That the Timberwolves are scoring 108.4 points per game. That's not awesome. During the regular season, that would have been quite poor, right? 108 points a game. But the Mavs are decidedly behind them. Basically 2 whole points behind them at 106. So both of these teams have been winning with their defense, right? What's up, D-Star? You're looking forward to the Gaff D-Live versus Gobert Cat Reed. Yeah, that is going to be an interesting matchup, right? Their bigs versus our bigs, because both of these teams have bigs that defend. Both of these teams' bigs are important for the series, right? It's not just like, oh yeah, this is a guard-driven series. No, the bigs will be absolutely monumental in the outcome of this series. What's up, TGK, my boy? What is good, man? Well, I'm just sitting here on my day off on a Monday, mulling over stats, just trying to check out how the playoffs have been running for both of these teams so far. And what we're seeing so far is basically that the Timberwolves have been better at almost everything so far. Now, the Timberwolves have only played 11 games, so they've gotten through their 2 rounds in one less game than it took the Mavs. One series was that Game 7 against Denver, where they absolutely had the incredible comeback last night. So let's keep looking here. Who's the better rebounding team between the Timberwolves and the Mavs? Well, I'm going to call that a push too. I mean, the Wolves have the statistically slight advantage, 44.1 to 43.8, but that's a push, right? So both teams have been rebounding pretty well. The Mavs, notice though, are the significantly better offensive rebounding team, and that's Gafford and Lively, and that's just also guys like Josh Green and PJ Washington and Luka, of course. Like the Mavs are opportunistic offensive rebounders. Like, it kind of goes back to that grinding style that they have really developed, right? They never seem to give up on a play. They're always quick to dive for the ball. They're always reaching in a hand. They're always jumping in there. They're always scrambling for the ball, which is one of my favorite things about this current makeup of the Mavs is they don't give up on plays. They grind, and they've got a better than 1 offensive rebound advantage per game to the TPups there. The Timberwolves are technically out rebounding us. I'd call that a push, but the Mavs are clearly out rebounding the Timberwolves. The assists there, the Timberwolves are getting 24.4 assists a game. The Mavs are getting 23 assists a game. I mean, that a one assist difference or a 1.5 assist difference, that's totally to be expected because why? Luka Doncic, right? Luka is an assist machine, but he also dominates that ball. The ball's not flying as much because he is going to create his own looks, and Luka's looks are largely very low assisted, right? Like he's going to pound the bar, he's going to pound the rock, he's going to score on the shots that he creates for himself. Look at this. Look how close these teams are on all these stats, right? Look at the turnovers per game. 12.5 for the Wolves, 12.9 for the Mavs. That's a push, right? That's a push. Steals. Okay, so here's a little differentiation, right? So the TPups are getting an extra steal a game to the Mavs, 7.3 to 6.4. Notice the blocks. This is another significant difference. The Mavs, even though they have Rudy Gobert, the Mavs are the considerably higher blocks per game team at 6.3 to 4.7. So, over a block and a half a game there, advantage for the Mavs. And then fouls, the Timberwolves are committing more than a foul a game than the Mavericks are. And then here's a huge one that's kind of like, oh, that's not awesome. Just overall plus minus, just flat plus minus for the playoffs. How has our team been doing compared to our opponent? Well, because we know all the teams at this point have been winning the games, right? They've been winning more than losing. That's why they're still breathing in the playoffs. But notice the way they've been winning. The Timberwolves have an 8.7 plus minus over their opponent. That is awesome. I mean, Boston right above them is just smoking fools, right? They should have. They've been playing the lesser opponents, right? But especially when you consider that the Timberwolves just got out of that series with the reigning champs, right? They just knocked off the champs. They have an 8.7 plus minus. And I know they've had some huge blowouts in there where I don't think, y'all help me remember, I don't think the Mavs had any blowout wins in the playoffs? I feel like they had a 12-point win against the Thunder. Has there been a bigger margin of victory? There hasn't been any huge blowout wins where we're just sitting back laughing for the final couple quarters. Have there? Am I forgetting? I might be forgetting. Because I know the Timberwolves have had at least one blowout that I'm aware of. So they've got that 8.7 plus minus, which is awesome compared to the Mavs. Respectable, honestly. Respectable to a 3.3 plus minus. So that's great. So they have the clear better than 5-point advantage on overall plus minus. So, all right, let's look at some more advanced statistics here. Let's get this a little bigger if we don't mind. There we go. All right, so here we've got the Timberwolves and Mavs. I'm going to cover up my own head here for a little bit. That's all right. So here we've got some more advanced stats. Advanced stats. Offensive rating for the Timberwolves, 116. 116.1. So 116. That's an awesome offensive rating for a defensive-minded team. That is really, really good. Notice the Mavs offensive rating, 114. That's not where we would want it, right? That's not where we would ideally have it. To close out, if I remember correctly, y'all can go double check me on this. To close out the regular season, the Mavs, once we went to the lineup change where we inserted Gafford and D. Jones back into the starting lineup, I think the Mavs were running about a 117 offensive rating. And so that's taken a significant hit, a 3-point hit in the playoffs. I mean, obviously we're playing much better competition, right? We're playing the best of the best. But 116 to 114, that's pretty close. That's a 2-point difference. That feels a little significant. It's not some sort of landslide. What's up, Cole? Cole says Game 6 versus the Clippers, up 24 in the fourth after that Kyrie 3 on PJ Tucker. Yeah, but what did we end at? Because that's what that stat would count as what the final score ended at. And you don't have to go look that up. I just don't remember. But yeah, a great lead of 24 points there against the Clippers. Thanks for pointing that out, Cole. I just don't remember what the final score was, because that's all that particular plus minus stat would take into account was the final score, right? All right, so offensive rating, Timberwolves have been the better offensive team than the Mavericks so far in the playoffs. That might surprise some of us, right? Because we know them as that defensive juggernaut. And they earned that reputation because they absolutely are. Look at the defensive rating for the Timberwolves, 107.6, so 107.5 basically. So that's awesome. I mean, they have basically improved their defensive rating in the playoffs compared to the regular season. Guys, that's kind of mind-boggling that your defensive rating is better in the playoffs, playing the best teams in the league, than it was in the regular season where you're playing, half the teams you play are scrubs. Like that's really impressive. Statistically, I bet that's anomalous. I doubt too many teams up their defensive rating in the playoffs. But the Timberwolves have. That's really, really impressive. A 107.6 would have been better than their regular season. Their regular season was like 108. So they're basically standing pat, but against better competition, and including beating the Nuggets last round. That's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. The Mavs though have a respectable 110. This would be a step back for the Mavs, or step down for the Mavs from the way they closed out the season once they went to the new lineup change. I don't know about you guys. I just don't consider the Mavs regular season stats that significant, because the last 20 games of the season, once they changed the starting five, they were just a different team. Just a totally different team. Yeah, 13-point win, I believe. Thanks, Cole. That's awesome. I appreciate that because I didn't remember. So I appreciate that. So, yeah, the Mavs defensive rating is, I think they were running about a 107, 108 to close out the season if you counted just the last 20 games, if you don't count the last 2 games where we were sitting all the starters. And so the Mavs defense has been a respectable 110 and a half. But Pierce picked the Mavs? Oh, Paul Pierce, closet Mavs fan so far here in the playoffs. I think he believes in Luka, and I think he believes in Kyrie. I think he trusts superstars. I think he's a guy who really trusts in superstars. What's up, Locke? Salute, my friend. Thanks for jumping in for a second, man. Hang out. Let me know what you're thinking. What statistical data point, Locke and TGK, are you guys really invested in for this upcoming series? Or what particular man-on-man matchup are you really looking for? Let me know. First one, to outright believe in the Mavs. Okay, cool. That's good to know. I didn't know that yet. I know he'd been kind of, in favor of us, especially in the series against the Thunder. He picked us, but I did not know that against the TPups. That's awesome. All right, so yeah, defensive rating, there's a clear advantage, a 3-point advantage. They have been the better defensive team. Now, also, I think we've been facing better offenses. You might go, isn't the Denver Nuggets one of the best offenses in the world? They are, but they weren't in that series. Now, they weren't in that series largely because they were playing the Timberwolves. Also, Murray was atrocious, and Porter Jr. just disappeared. So I mean, how much of that immediately just goes to the credit of the defense of the Timberwolves? A lot. How much of that is just Murray being injured and Porter Jr. not playing within his capabilities? I don't know, but you have to give the Timberwolves credit. Kyrie versus Connolly. And Ant, right? Yeah, Ant said that's his matchup, which is who is Connolly going to be guarding? If Connolly's not guarding Kyrie, he's going to be guarding someone way bigger than him, way taller than him. So that'll be really interesting to see if Ant was speaking truth there, if he was just wanting that matchup. Luka and pick and rolls versus Cat. Yeah, he should have the advantage there. Luka, of course, loves to hunt Gobert, which is like the stupidest decision a young man could make in this world. PJ versus Cat. Okay, yeah, I like that. Because Cat played some awesome defense. I know we're not used to saying that. But Cat played some really nice defense against Joker in that series to close it out. All right, so net rating. Let's see the net rating. So this is the consideration of per 100 possessions, how much of an advantage do you have over your opponent? Well, the Timberwolves have an 8.5. The Mavs have a 3.3. So not, I mean, both teams doing well. You take a 3.3, but that 8.5 looks good. Both teams are pretty solid assists. Timberwolves are a little higher. Once again, that's Luka creating his own looks for himself a lot. So that's not anything to be nervous about there. Assist to turnover, we've been a little higher on the turnovers than they have. They're better. They're better at controlling the ball, but I think the Mavs can turn around. If we get Luka just to play within himself, I'm not worried about the turnovers. And if we can get Kyrie to just pull it back a little, just dial it back a little bit, Kyrie, I think that'll be nice. We are the better offensive rebounding team. That stat doesn't surprise us at all, right? They are the clearly better defensive rebounding team. That doesn't surprise us, though I would love to see Gafford and Lively really, really show up. So they have a 54% rebound rate. We have a 51.5% rebound rate. They are clearly the better rebounding team, but not by some dominating margin, right? Turnover percentage, that's basically a push. 13-3, 13-8, so, that's very, very close. Effective field goal percentage, they are less than 1% better than us, but also the Mavs can shoot better, right? The Mavs can shoot better. We went through the first two rounds, which the whole series of the Clippers, and then half of the series against the Thunder. We had a hobbled Luka who was not shooting up to his just expectations, right? Not even like Luka wasn't on fire. No, Luka just wasn't himself. Forget on fire, Luka. Luka just wasn't himself in that series. True shooting, they've got us by 2 percentage points. They have been in the playoffs the better shooting team. Just acknowledge it, right? 2% is not, not some sort of earthquake or anything like that, but it is better. Pace, Mavs have a slightly better pace than the Timberwolves, but I mean that's basically a push. Pi is not a stat I've ever really looked into. Look into this. Now, here's the thing. We've played, this is per 100 possessions, right? Remember? This is per 100 possessions. So we get the higher possessions. Actually, this can't be per 100 possessions. That makes no sense. All right, so there we've got at just kind of every step along the way, the Timberwolves have been playing better than we have. Slightly better in most cases, slightly, worse in a few interesting spots like offensive rebounds and three-point shooting, which is going to be significant in this series. But they do overall have both the counting stats and the advanced stats advantages. Let me see what you guys are saying. TGK, I think someone's offense gets unlocked in this series. I just think the gravity that Luka brings will be the first levee that breaks on Minnesota's end. Yeah, I think the gravity that Luka and Kyrie, if they're just playing their normal selves, right? If we can just keep Luka's lower extremities healthy. We can keep those legs healthy. That if that knee keeps bouncing back like it has been, that's awesome. TGK goes on to say, also, Minnesota had an easy first-round matchup. That is worth saying. Thank you very much. These stats could be a bit skewed versus the Mavs stats, who had two very tough opponents, I would say. Yeah, we weren't favored statistically in either of those matchups. We played the number 4 seed and the number 1 seed. So yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's jump into something that might be a bit discouraging, and that is the Timberwolves' most played lineup. Their starters of Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert, Cat, Anthony Edwards, and Jaden McDaniels, and they have 129 minutes together, an offensive rating of 118.7. Awesome. Awesome offense from their starters in the playoffs, and a defensive rating of 96.4 for a net of 22.4. So the Timberwolves starters in the playoffs have been absolutely slobber knocking the opponent. They have been beating up the opponent. They have been scoring outrageously. 118.7 would be one of the best offenses in the league, and 96.4 defensive rating from their starters is unthinkably good. A plus 22.4 net is insane. So the Timberwolves starters have been beating people up. All right, let's look at the Mavs starters. Some of you already know how this is going to go, and some of you will be shocked. So the Mavs starters, which are Kyrie Irving, D. Jones, PJ, Luka, and Daniel Gafford, in 12 games, 122 minutes together in those 12 games, have an offensive rating of 110.6, not awesome, but a defensive rating of 115.9. Let's round up. 116 for a negative 5.4 net. The Mavericks starters have been losing their minutes, and not by like 0.1, 0.2, but by 5.5 points per 100 possessions. Guys, that is crazy. That is crazy. The Mavs starters are a negative 5.5 points per 100 possessions, where the mini starters, the Timberwolves starters, are a plus 22. That's a difference of 27 between the two starting fives. That is worrisome. That is not good. Now, if you're like me and you know even anything about stats, you know the common problem here, right? You know why the Mavs are a negative 5, and it's one Mr. Who? Say it with me. Daniel Gafford. Gafford has been rough. We know he got bullied and beaten to a pulp by Zoo in the first round against the Clippers, and he was not good against the Thunder either, guys. He had a couple nice plays, a couple nice dunks, a couple nice blocks, but the Mavs struggled in his minutes. Now, I'm not saying he's a bad player. What I am telling you is he's a backup. I'm telling you, long term, he's going to be a backup, because look what happens to the Mavs production when all you change is you add Derek Lively and swap out Mr. Landlord himself. Look what happens when you add the kid. So you've got Luka, D. Jones, PJ, Kyrie, and D. Live. Now, and what I'm going to suggest to you is this is our starting 5. I'm not sure it will technically be our starting 5, but this is overwhelmingly the best Mavs lineup that's been getting minutes in the playoffs. It's been getting any significant minutes right here. Look at this. In 12 games, only 90 minutes played, but just 12 games, right? An offensive rating that will not blow your socks off. 107.2. That's rough. That's not an offense winning you games. And yet we are now in the Western Conference Finals. So if the Mavs starting 5 has been a negative net 5.5 points a game, they are losing the game. They're losing their minutes to 5.5 points per 100 possessions. What's making the difference? How are the Mavs in the Western Conference Finals? Well, that next stat. Yeah, the 107.2 offensive rating, that's not great. But look at the next number. look at the defensive rating. Look at what the Mavs have been doing when it's the starting five plus D-Live instead of Gafford. An 85.3. What decade are we living in? Is this the 80s? Is this the early 2000s? Like when teams couldn't score? What? The Mavs starters with D-Live, your eyes have not been deceiving you. Your eyes have been telling you, man, D-Live's making a difference. Man, D-Live is stifling the opponent's offense. Man, the Mavs defense with Derek Lively, the second out there, has been incredible. That's what all of our eyes have been telling us. Man, the Mavs just look different with Derek Lively on the floor. I'm on Twitter with you guys. I'm watching streams. Everyone is calling for D-Live. And you're right. The defense has been beyond elite when D-Live has been on the floor. 85.3. 85. Remember how I was just a second ago, I was just bragging on the Minnesota defense with their starters. 96.4. The Mavs defense with Derek Lively has been better than 10 points per 100 possessions better than the Minnesota Timberwolves' best defense. Like, that's incredible. Now, you might be going, what about the offense? Yeah. That's the point. That's the point. Is can our starting five with D-Live, can we score points? Guys, healthy Luka or healthier. I don't think we're going to get healthy Luka, but healthier Luka is going to make a huge difference. I honestly like this matchup better for Kyrie as well. I like it better for Luka because Jaden McDaniels is an awesome perimeter defender, but he ain't strong. He's wiry. He's quick. He's not strong like Lou Dort, and he's not gonna be as physical. He's not gonna get away with being as physical, and he's not gonna be as physical as Dort was. And he just isn't stronger than Luka. I think there's probably a good argument that even though Luka has the size advantage, that per pound, Lou Dort is stronger than Luka, and he's definitely more fit than Luka. Right? That dude is a tank. I forget who it was. Maybe it was Nick with Locked On. Someone who was actually at one of the games and it has a media credential said they got to stand next to Lou Dort and they were like, yeah, that dude's a linebacker. That dude is a hoss. And I mean, Luka's a giant, right? And he's strong, but Luka's like country strong. You know what I mean? It's not all chiseled. Lou Dort is a specimen. Like, that dude is Adonis and an unbelievable athlete. So he's as strong or stronger than Luka, and he's quicker than Luka probably. And man, he's an awesome defender, and plays football out there, of course. But Jaden McDaniels is not that. He's long, he's wiry. Those kind of guys, can bother Luka's shot, maybe. But Luka can punish him physically. Luka is clearly stronger than McDaniels physically, and I don't think Connolly is not the Connolly of 10 years ago. He's not a great defender anymore. Kyrie will cook him, and I think Kyrie will cook in this series. I really do. So I'm looking at this this lineup, this five-man lineup, and saying, man, Gafford either got to get his head out of the ground and start playing solid defense again, or we got to roll with this lineup as much as we can, which is kind of what I'm voting on, and we got to see this lineup produce better offense. Because this is clearly going to be a matchup of two awesome defenses. But who is going to hit their shots? Whose adjustments are going to work on the offensive end? Because I think both of these teams are going to end up absolutely playing awesome defense against the other. And so I think it's close. I think it's close. Any Mavs fans out there or content creators out there that are like, oh, the Mavs are going to roll over, man, no. This is another close matchup. The coaches, the TPups are well coached. They are together. They have kind of that same chemistry and dynamic of fighting for each other defensively like the Mavs do. And so, honestly, the two teams do similar things well. The Mavs are the better three-point shooting team, and I think the Mavs could be considerably better if Luka starts hitting his threes like he's been doing in the last few games. And if we could get better production from Kyrie, this is the thing that, not enough people have said. Kyrie was effective against the Thunder, but he wasn't great, especially offensively. He was not great, and he acknowledged that. He's like, this is one of the toughest playoff rounds I've ever had in my life. Like, the Thunder really did a great job. Jalen Williams, J-Dub, and the rest of the Thunder did a really solid job of pestering and double-teaming Kyrie. They knew that Luka was injured. They trusted Dort as much as possible to win that one-on-one matchup. And they focused their schemes on stopping Kyrie, and they did a pretty great job of that. And I think Kyrie should have been more aggressive offensively, right? But he was effective, especially in second halves. I think this matchup, as crazy as it is to say, because the Wolves are an awesome defensive team, I think this matchup will be better for Kyrie, because Kyrie could abuse Mike Conley, and I think he's going to do well against Cat. I really do. And so I'm confident that our superstars are playing better right now at this moment than they were against the Clippers, and than they were against the majority of the series against the Thunder. And so I am trusting in our superstars. I'm not ready to make a series prediction yet, like how many games, but I'll tell you, I think it's going to be close. Statistically, the Wolves clearly have the advantage, but I think we all know that one team has more superstar power than the other. So we will see how it goes. What stats jumped out to you? Was anything alarming to you? Was anything surprising to you? Or were you like, man, that's about what I expected? We need Gafford to get back to playing his strong self, because, man, the Wolves are kind of like the Mavs. They can throw bigs at you for 48 minutes. Oh, they got Cat, who's going to be, working on the perimeter, but can also work down low. They got Gobert, who can just pound on you defensively, and every once in a while he might make a layup or something like that. And then they got that Naz Reid, who I love, but I'm having to work up hate for, because I'm not going to love him when he's playing against the Mavs, right? Mavs in 7, Locke says. I like the confidence. I like the Mavs pick there. I'm not ready to give my pick just yet. We'll have that coming maybe a little bit later in the week. But I like where your head's at, Locke. I like that a lot. All right, guys. So this is just a kind of a high-level overview of some of the basic counting stats and some of the advanced stats as well. I'll see you next time. Y'all have a good one. Go Mavs.